Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, and best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to learn how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now. This special episode is an excerpt from an interview between Peter Conquest and Alec Sutherland from Blue Prism as they discuss the role of automation in the retail industry. Let's listen in. Take it away, Peter.
I'm delighted to introduce my colleague Alec Sutherland, who has kindly agreed to answer some questions on his experiences in RPA.
So, hi everyone. I'm a customer advisor at Blue Prism. I've worked in RPA for about 7 years, various places, software vendors, consultancies, in industry. My time's been spent at Capita, Autonomy, EY, and the John Lewis Partnership.
Thanks, Alec. So, a lot of experience in consultancy and also on the vendor side, which has obviously given you a broad experience on RPA in the retail industry. Where and why did you start your RPA journey?
I started RPA back in 2014. So this was in local government. At the time, local authorities were making savings, this was the austerity years, and they were using digital workers to automate some of their back office processes. So what local authorities were trying to do would be to shift their citizens to digital channels, essentially to lower the cost to serve. And so local authority websites were updated to incorporate kind of dynamic forms for citizens to request kind of various services. And what the Blue Prism digital workforce would do would be to take those requests and perform the kind of relevant process in the back office systems. So even back then in 2014, this was combining kind of digital front-end channels for citizens to make requests on and actioning these requests via a digital workforce in the background. This was kind of a huge thing for local authorities and did kind of massively reduce their service costs.
So in a way, a difficult time to enter the RPA market, and I can imagine those austerity years must have been very tough and challenging for you. But what were the blockages and challenges you faced in your tactical approach?
I think in my kind of tactical approach, I'd probably think back to the time at John Lewis. So one of the major challenges was balancing the team, their activities and the costs of them performing those activities to ensure that kind of value was delivered quickly. So a lot of time went in to looking at kind of operational excellence of the team and looking at that delivery life cycle. I think this is kind of a never-ending task really for Centre of Excellencies. So while I was at John Lewis, over those kind of 24 months, all those kind of various activities that the team performed were improved. I tried to take a continuous improvement mindset and kind of lots of kind of good things from Lean and kind of look to kind of build those team activities well and enable the team to do what we'd hired them to do, which was process assessment or developing processes. I think there are many challenges that an automation team face, especially new ones. And I think at the start, certainly there's lots of kind of manual overheads. This could be kind of tier one monitoring and alerting, kind of requests from business areas coming into the team. And some of the areas around kind of performance reporting, a lot of those things aren't available at the start and need to be built. What I found was that those challenges could be addressed by extending that kind of application ecosystem that Blue Prism operates in and integrate Blue Prism with that. So it might be like an analytics platform, maybe kind of incorporating the service management system as well.
Well, that's great insight. Thanks, Alex. We see that with many of our customers as they optimize their COE teams and work out the best way to create operational excellence around the delivery cycle. So why did you actually choose Blue Prism?
At the time, Blue Prism was the #1 choice, and I believe it still is. It's got a proven track record of operating at scale in demanding enterprise environments. It was critical for the John Lewis partnership to select a tool that had kind of security and scalability built in from the start. The partnership has a complex application landscape, and locally deploying an RPA tool on our partners' desktops wasn't and isn't an enterprise approach to automation. The service that John Lewis partnership provides to its customers is obviously paramount, and so there was a lot of confidence found in Blue Prism's track record. Its accounts are published, and its platform focuses on security, and that satisfied the kind of high standards that the partnership's kind of data privacy and information security teams had. So it was the number one choice.
Thanks for that, Alec. Certainly we see the ability to scale well in highly demanding enterprise environments as one of the key important areas for retailers, then other customers in other industries as well. So how do you think intelligent automation is going to play a role in retail?
I think it's going to be kind of hugely important. I think we need to remember that retail was going through transformation pre-COVID, with many retailers kind of underway with transformation projects to address that, and looking to become kind of leaner and more agile and reduce their cost to serve. I think that COVID has only accelerated that need to look at those projects. And from where we sit, Pete, we can see that RPA can enable and support those huge transformation projects.
Yes, indeed. We're seeing this trend industry-wide, and I imagine customers becoming sort of more leaner and agile with the emphasis of reducing cost to serve and switching to online, and that will continue. So I think that's probably the key. And how do you think intelligent automation is going to play a role in retail, Alec?
I think what we're seeing, Pete, is that retailers are looking to build upon RPA with intelligent automation, and this is just going to provide those retailers with more capability to automate more processes or increase the scope of existing processes that they've already automated. And so, there's the new processes and the re-engineering of existing automated processes. I think it should mean that retailers can take a kind of more strategic approach to automation, and potentially kind of reimagine how some of their business functions are working. So, for example, looking at kind of HR and just completely reimagining how HR works within their organisation. Intelligent automation would give them the tools to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly changing the way we work and think about the future of automation, which will give retailers the freedom to tackle these challenges throughout their business. And that's a really interesting observation. So what are the most common mistakes retailers make when they start on their RPA journey?
I think one of the common problems retailers make, and probably lots of organisations potentially, is they find a lot of success with automating, as we would call it, Pete, the kind of low-hanging fruit, so highly repetitive, high-volume tasks. But it may be kind of slow to change that approach, that kind of tactic, when those opportunities start potentially to dry up. And so what we see is a kind of switch to expand that scope and kind of pivot, look at new processes, engage new business areas, potentially work with other transformation projects within that organisation, and ultimately keep their opportunity pipeline healthy. Maybe even looking at expanding to complementary technologies. So we spoke about intelligent automation there, so bringing on new technologies. Not potentially getting into the detail too much on existing processes, and maybe looking to address kind of process documentation as well, because that potentially can be quite heavy in places or missing in others.
That's a really interesting observation. There are only so many highly repetitive, high volume tasks to automate. So when these are exhausted, you have to know where to look for the next ones. It's engaging those new business areas and working on the transformation projects, which can have serious positive impact on the business. If you could do it all over again, what would you do in RPA? How would you go about it?
I think when I was at the John Lewis Partnership, there's an awful lot of kind of hard work and kind of long hours from quite a big team that went into to making that team successful. So I don't want to look back with too many regrets, but probably if I could change one thing, it would probably have been to be a little bit braver and look to tackle maybe bigger problems within the organisation, work with transformation projects slightly more. I think when you're in the detail, it is sometimes slightly difficult to take a more strategic view. So I think that would have probably helped us and given us, as we said before, a kind of bigger opportunity pipeline. So if I could give any advice to other heads of, then that would be my main recommendation.
Right, so be more bold and look to tackle transformation in the business functions. So what are your predictions on how COVID is going to change the industry?
Well, as we know, Pete, retail was going through kind of huge transformation pre-COVID, and there was a big push from retailers to transition some of their business online in response to online retailers. And also there was kind of changes in customer behaviour. I think as we've seen, all of that has been hugely accelerated. And what retailers have identified is that their store income is quite fragile. And so there is obviously a kind of huge need to push their services online. And potentially those online services need more investment. Over COVID, they might have been creaking somewhat. What we see is the retailers that will be successful will change their business kind of without fear. They'll see it as an opportunity, identify opportunities in this period of kind of a paused period of lockdown where their stores are inactive. And they'll probably also look to kind of double down on any existing back office automations. And so there are kind of multiple areas that they'll look at. What we're seeing, Pete, is that retailers are looking to diversify their supply chains. There's kind of been huge pressure on those. And this change could be kind of coupled with kind of system-to-system integrations or potentially RPA and blending that approach with some of the more kind of intelligent automation tools available. Customers' expectations have changed, and maybe for the good. There's been a kind of forced move to e-commerce with kind of store native shoppers switching to online during these kind of long periods of lockdown. So what we saw pre-COVID was retailers were reimagining stores and trying to be kind of digitally innovative. And looking at their offerings, a retailer just needs to be more bold and more innovative at this time. And so, one of the ways that stores were looking at kind of tackling the online threat was through kind of store pickups. But obviously, kind of COVID has threatened even those. So they've got to be more bold in what they're doing, and we're seeing that. So some retailers are looking to diversify their kind of offerings and looking to change their store space to maybe office or residential, and maybe even kind of furnish those locations with products from their own store. So a very good kind of use of their kind of existing portfolios to diversify their offerings. But what we see, Pete, is that's an opportunity to kind of reimagine those new functions, and so that particular new function could be completely resourced by automation with Blue Prism digital workers, and kind of go for an automation first approach to some of these things. So quite an exciting time, kind of lots of opportunities, we feel, but we think the retailers need to be bold at this time.
Yeah, I think the customer is clearly keen now, with so many choices available on how they interact with the retailer to get the best deal and experience. And e-commerce has been around for a while, as we know. It's become ever more important because of COVID. I like your example of Blue Prism RPA and how it could help stores diversifying in housing, rentals and furnishing these stores with products. I think that's great insight. What are your recommendations for anyone thinking about starting process automation, Alec?
Well, as we know, intelligent automation will change, how we work. So I think the usual kind of recommendations that we see are still valid. So securing that senior support within your organisation, that senior leadership, creating a strong vision for automation, start building that culture to support a kind of enterprise rollout of automation. They're all still relevant. These are kind of fairly kind of obvious recommendations that we see, and there are many articles on this. But we do think that COVID has completely changed the landscape and appetite for automation. So therefore, my recommendation would be for organisations, as we spoke about before, to be more bold, look at how work is performed within the organisation, and maybe start, as I mentioned before, looking at how work is performed in one department and reimagine it. And maybe that's a pilot. We now have the software and hardware capability to do this. That probably wasn't the case 2 or 3 years ago. And this is where retailers are going to find huge savings. And ultimately, they'll use that to fulfill those, transformation goals and transformation projects that they've been running for those 2 or 3 years. This is potentially going to be the kind of tool in the toolbox that will enable that. And Blue Prism are working with organisations across multiple sectors and are kind of happy to help and support retailers at this kind of tricky time to ensure they are successful. That's
really sound advice, Alec, from someone with direct experience. Thanks a lot for your comments and your valuable insights today. It's a pleasure as always. Thanks again, Alec, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.